Hello and welcome back to my kitchen. Looky what I have here and what I am up to today on the tail end of a Thanksgiving weekend. It's snowing. I got a lot of chores done yesterday, a lot of driving around knowing that we were going to get our very first snow of the season here in Salt Lake City. How are you? Where are you today? Is it cold? Is it warm? What are you up to? Are you taking good care of yourself? If you don't know, my name is Tiffany Anderson. I am the founder of Anderson Therapeutics. This is my Aging Well channel that I launched this year in 2025, and I refreshed my very first video this morning. Took a look at it again because I had put it back as unlisted. It's a very long video, though when I looked at it again, I thought, I like this video. I created a new thumbnail for it, and I'm going to put a little card for that here for any of you who are wanting to see my introduction and who the heck I am and what I bring to this platform and why on all times of the year that I'm going to be starting December 2025 with a 3-day detox. And in my world, a detox simply means that I am going to eat super clean, cleaner than I already do. And I showed you potatoes because I follow the starch solution. And that means that the term vegan doesn't really apply. The starch solution is a whole food, plant-based, oil-free diet. And if you're familiar with the starch solution, Dr. John McDougall, his wife Mary McDougall, who is a registered nurse, they put together the starch solution decades ago. I only discovered it later in life after I had already faced life-threatening illness, went through 3 very intrusive, life-changing surgeries, became bionic, wrote a book about the process of going from what I thought was being a very healthy, active adult to suddenly going on a medical mystery tour, became bionic, and am now living well with joint replacement. I'm also managing chronic conditions and doing it quite well based on my background of health education and practicing lifestyle medicine, working as a health educator in the field of public health. I have taught at the academic level, and that's why I'm here on YouTube, because I am bringing all of my patient advocacy, my health coaching, my the ways I am better caring for myself, especially now post COVID, that life changed dramatically for me during and after the pandemic. And so now I am my own caretaker and traveling extensively. I'm doing things that I thought I would never ever be able to do. And I talk a lot about that in that very first video of why I decided to start creating YouTube videos. And I want to give you extra insights today on what the heck I'm doing for the next 3 days, why I'm doing it, and just follow along. Maybe you're just plant curious. maybe you already think you're eating enough vegetables, and perhaps you are. You know, a lot of people in my world, and certainly people that I'm coaching, they eat an omnivore diet. Some of them are on the full board carnivore. I have done that in my life. I have followed many different meal plans over the course of my life, certainly as an adult. And I talk about that on my website, that my meal plan has been a journey. And I don't begrudge anyone, however you're dining. My motto for anyone that I coach, and if they're a little bit hesitant to work with me as a wellness coach, thinking, oh, well, I'm not ready to be a vegan or anything. And I'm just like, that's okay. You do you. I have always encouraged people, especially those that are in my world, people that I cook for, dine with, share space with, travel with, and say, you know what, eat what you want, eat what you like, simply accept the consequences of that dietary choice. So whatever you're eating, then you're an adult. I'm hoping that I'm speaking only to adults out there, and that whatever you're putting in your face, whatever you're eating, whatever you're asking your body to digest and make sense of, that you're okay with whatever comes up. Because I've eaten plenty of junk food in my life. I followed the Atkins high protein thing for a while. I, for a time, was classified as gluten intolerant. And that was incorrect, though I ate a gluten-free diet for a long time and missed out on some really delicious food. I am a health educator, so anything you're going to hear from me is based on my own experience, my levels of expertise from the credentials that I do hold. I have worked in a clinical setting. I have worked in a spa setting. I am also an alternative healthcare provider, and I currently work in a corporate setting as well as managing my own business. I'm a writer, I'm a published author, and I bring a variety of tips, tools, resources to the table. Many of them, especially all of those on my website, are offered freely to you. So what I am doing for the next 3 days, it's some people call it a 3-day potato reset. Other people call it like a very mini of a Mary's mini. And I can put information in the description below that talk to that. I would never say that I am improving upon or doing anything different than what Dr. McDougall and his wife, Mary McDougall, set down as the foundation. When I was first introduced to the starch solution, I had never heard of it. And at the time, I was actually teaching nutrition at the academic level. And I felt quite foolish at the time after I began studying Dr. McDougall's work, and as a physician and someone who dove deeply into the field of nutrition, which many doctors do not study. They're not required to study nutrition. It's not their forte. That's something more that a registered dietitian. There's many fields that actually study nutrition and then apply it to their medical practice. And Dr. McDougall was the first physician, besides my own naturopath and homeopath and even a dentist I had at the time who studied nutrition as well as was a genius in the field of dentistry. Those two realms rarely cross to the level that I learned from Dr. McDougall, and that they were not only, teaching it, presenting it, that they had applied it and were living it and living it as parents and as mature adults. And I had the honor of studying with Dr. McDougall and went to one of his intensive weekends in Santa Rosa. Now, he left us last year. Dr. McDougall passed away last year. And I am so grateful that I was able to meet him in person, and that he actually was one of the first people to actually read the book that I published. And it's a resource guide for people who are receiving joint replacement, specifically hip replacement. And every recovery tip in that resource guide applies to nearly any type of surgery. I published that in 2017, finished it up in 2016, and then it was subsequently nominated for the AARP 2018 Purpose Prize, has received terrific reviews, and I most recently, now here I am in 2025, I was accepted for Utah Authors Day, a library here in Utah. It's in Weber County, so a little bit further north from where I live. A library has accepted and purchased copies of my book to put it into circulation for the public. Now, for anyone who's not familiar with how getting a book into a library works, my publisher tried really, really hard, and I had a whole marketing team helping me with when I, had the great privilege and honor of becoming a published author. That's a big step, especially for an unknown author in a niche type of audience. And my resource guide was designed and produced from the patient perspective with someone who has a background in health education and wanted to take alternative and Western therapies and marry them together. That is how I practice wellness in my own life. That is something that I have done as a caregiver. That's something I have practiced as a parent. And even though I have been an empty nester for many, many years, I share those tips and resources with those I love. I have done that now for myself, now that I am aging solo and aging gracefully, and that I am my own caregiver. And that, to me, is the greatest gift that I could do for myself, because as I am moving forward and wanting to do my best to remain independent, I want to work as long as possible, because times are challenging, and most mature adults I'm speaking to, and even if they're a little bit younger and they're caregiving, or they're in that sandwich generation of still have kids at home, or perhaps they're helping to raise grandkids, they've got older relatives that they're taking care of. This health management, especially if you're on a tight budget, gets really, really challenging. That's where food as medicine in my world has saved me an incredible amount of money. There are very few prescription medications that I now need to take. And that was something that I learned when I studied the Starch Solution. I tried Dr. McDougall's free 10-day program that is still on his website, and I've linked to that off of my website, that it changed my life in 10 days. I was astonished, and was able to get off high blood pressure medication, high cholesterol medication, and the only medication that I now am required to take is for, I have Hashimoto's disease. So I take a very mild dose of my thyroid medication, though I haven't had to have it increase. And I am managing all of the side effects for those of you who have Hashimoto's. Thyroid disease can be very tricky, especially if you're managing stress. What adult isn't managing lots of stress, especially if you've got other conditions going on, you've got a busy life, taking care of other people, taking care of yourself. I am working multiple jobs simply because housing is incredibly expensive where I live. I like to travel, and so in order for me to have the quality of life that I want, I am willing to and able to take on extra jobs, because right now I'm just taking care of myself, and that means I have that extra time to invest in some jobs that are definitely more I wouldn't call it a grind, though it's definitely, the corporate gig that's offering me things like really good health insurance. It's one of the few positions that's available in my area that offers a pension, which is a very big deal since I turned 60 this year, and having, worked in government jobs in the past where I was vested, so able to build on that pension. That's a big deal. So all these things, see, there's all this stuff. So this is kind of like my story. This is why I am doing all of this stuff. So for the next 3 days, for me to dive in really deep in my wellness plan, it's a jump start on my 2026 goals. I have been a health nerd for a long time, and I know that goes back to when I was in school and playing sports as a kid. And since I have asthma and I live in the Wasatch Fronts where the air is really polluted, and in the winter now we get what's called inversion here. So Salt Lake sits in a bowl. And so a lot of times all of our corporate polluters and some of just the different pollutants in the air, not only from industry, but from, the Great Salt Lake is disappearing. And so we've got a lot of different types of dust particles that are really hard on my lungs. So the more I can do to invest in antioxidants and extra fiber and ensuring that I get enough cardio and I'm strength training, all of these type of things are giving me a stronger foundation so I can avoid getting sick, and that I can take the best care of myself that I can, knowing that I live in an environment where there's environmental hazards that kind of, I have to balance that scale. So eating clean like this, where I am choosing potatoes. So these are going to be the starch that I build my meal around. If you've seen some of my other on my Nourish playlist, I have a lot of foodie videos. They're just shorts. I have some longer ones where it shows where I made like an enchilada casserole recently. I make a veggie loaded hash brown, which I will be doing. I've already put together my menu plan. So I menu plan every week. That's how I grocery shop. That's how I go through my pantry. I look through the cupboard, see what staples, what things I have on hand. You probably do this too. And just figure out what's in season, what's on sale, what sounds good. And that's how I just budget my groceries. So for the next 3 days, I've got my spud meals. Now I've already baked a bunch of russet potatoes. Potatoes are so nutritious. They are so delicious. If you know who Spud Fit, Andrew, he is in Australia, and I followed his journey. He ate potatoes only for a year, and it was a whole there was a whole reason behind why he did this. Dr. McDougall interviewed him at one point, and even Dr. McDougall said that, you could live on potatoes and water alone and be just fine, because especially, you want to eat the peel, that there are so many nutrients inside this humble little potato. And there's been tons of studies and research done. Now, I won't be doing that. I'm eating a lot more than potatoes, though know that all of the nutrition that I need, hey, a potato. And this was $1.49, I believe, was the price I paid yesterday for 5 pounds of russet potatoes. I will also be having a lot of sweet potatoes. And for these, I also like to, after I scrub them and cook these, there will be some that I will bake, because there's a really delicious, it's like a pudding that you make with baked sweet potatoes and cocoa powder and dates, and you just put it in the food processor, and it just makes this beautiful pudding. And it's thick, it's creamy, it's delicious, it's sweet, and it's so yummy. I was at the Plant powered party this just a few months ago in Las Vegas, and one of the another content creator that I watch his videos all the time, and now Javant, he was actually there, so it was so neat to see him in person after watching so many of his videos. But he actually had the kitchen, because there were hundreds of us there for that convention, and that was one of the desserts that we got to have, because the whole conference was catered, and so it was all of the food that is pretty rare. That, because I usually, when I travel, I'm very picky, and have just become this food snob, only because it works so well for me and I feel so good and I'm so happy when I eat that way. So I'll either take my own food or just, check ahead with the restaurant just to make sure that they've got something available that fits within my dietary plan. And thankfully now it is so much easier for any of you out there who maybe have people in your world that maybe you have, someone, a child, a grandchild who has a peanut allergy or shellfish allergies. There's a lot of different dietary requirements out there that more and more restaurants now are fully capable of meeting people's needs. The other things that I will be eating, besides the things I said, I've got a veggie mash that I put together, and I had some of that right after Thanksgiving. I also made some sweet potato mash that I'll have, and got pickles for snacking. I have tons and tons of vegetables that I'll be enjoying on the sides. And then they had blackberries on sale at the grocery store. They had mangoes for 59 cents. And you can probably see the pineapple over there in the window. There's a pineapple. I'll be having 1 or 2 servings of fruit a day. And mainly just the meals are however I want to prepare my potatoes, whether they're going to be roasted or air fried or steamed or boiled with the hash browns. If you've seen my video on that, I cook just the frozen hash browns. You don't need oil, and they cook up just fine, get all crispy and brown. I put tons of vegetables in there, and cover it with hot sauce. It's absolutely divine. So delicious. So excited for all of this. Another thing I will be starting out with, and this is because if you have seen kind of my behind the scenes, and I'm actually reading my book out loud right now for anybody who is going through joint replacement or is just curious about the process and how I not only, went through the procedures really well, got off all of the pain medication really quickly, started, got back to my fitness routine, and it takes time. I'm not saying it was easy or it was as speedy as I wanted it to be, though with joint replacement, the more you move, the better you'll do. So movement is key. Movement, and however you can fit that in, because sometimes people have other type of restrictions besides joint replacement. I have osteoporosis, I have osteoarthritis, and I understand limitations, and I know exactly what my abilities are, and I also move as much and as frequently as I can to stay mobile for the future. In the morning, if you can see that, I'll be having lemon water. So that's something that I do first thing in the morning, half of a lemon, a little bit of warm water, and I have lemon water in the morning after I brush my teeth, and then make sure to rinse my mouth off because lemon can be hard on tooth enamel. This is really good for my liver. That's something, if you've seen my book, Butternut to Bionic, there's a whole story of, I started out with jaundice, went to liver failure, heart failure, my left leg was swelling. It was just this bizarre, no clue what went on. I spent hundreds, thousands of dollars with all sorts of doctors only to be told, unknown etiology. Boy, that gets exhausting after you're told that so many times after spending so much money, and they still don't know what's wrong with you. So, thankfully, I did have a lot of other practitioners, both Western and alternative medicine, who were able to figure out some of the things that were going on with me that unfortunately led to hip replacement. So, for the love of my liver and because it's a palate cleanser, having lemon water in the morning is really beneficial for me. There's a lot of different research out there and topics about all the reasons why maybe lemon water in the morning would be good for you too. For people with ulcers, sour stomachs, all that type of thing. Maybe if you have heartburn, this wouldn't be the best thing for you. It works really great for me. So that's one of the things I will be starting the day with. I am also going to say no to caffeine for the next few days. Caffeine is a stimulant that Dr. McDougall actually discourages, and something that I have a love-hate relationship with, only because I have had high blood pressure and that I monitor my caffeine use. And when I usually will have 1 to 2 cups a day, when I'm drinking it very early in the morning, and I also pace myself, I know how to take my own pulse, and hopefully you do too, that I always give myself a break from caffeine. And I invariably feel better when I do give myself a break from caffeine. So I will be having herbal tea. I've got this little yummy from Winco, is one of the stores I shop at. And I'll also be having some of you may have seen the other videos where I like savory more than I like sweet. And these Millie's sipping broths, they had a little Black Friday deal. I love Millie's too because they're a family-owned business, and there's tomato basil, there's a tortilla flavor, and there's also a pho and a lemongrass. And I've taken those when I travel, if only, like on the cruise I went on in June, I took a bunch of those with, and on the buffet, I was able to put together some amazing little soups. And if you have miso at home, I did a foodie thing recently where it was like a miso soup on steroids type of a thing that I called it. And I had rice noodles in there and scallions and so yummy. But I used one of those broths along with the miso, and it was just hearty, and I put some edamame in there too. It was really, really delicious. But let me take you over. I want to show you something just to give you a little more insight on why I'm doing the things I'm doing. There's definitely a story here. There is a method to my madness. And what the heck's going on? And it goes all the way back to a time when I actually got my first opportunity to travel abroad. Now, excuse the shakiness here. Hopefully you can see that. After the pandemic, I lost, I would say, about 75 to 85% of the people in my world. I lost my job, damn near lost my business. It was awful. And my grown son, he travels a lot for business internationally, and we were going through so much loss at the time. And after it was all said and done, and then I went back into the corporate world, and where I'm at now, I work in public health. We just kind of made a pact, my son and I, that we were certainly going to focus on more experiences and less things, and to be able to travel together at least once a year. And as you know, he's a very independent man, and certainly has his own life, though to be able to share that time together, knowing that my world had gotten very small as far as the people I had left in my world, that we were going to invest that time together. So when my son encouraged me to get my passport, then one of the things I actually told a person who, she's a dear friend, and she's also one of my healthcare providers, and Crossing those boundaries is kind of tricky, though she and her husband were leading a tour to Teotihuacan. And so here's me in 2023, right there, standing in front of one of the pyramids at Teotihuacan. And at this time, I mean, I used to be 5'8", and now I'm 5'5.5", and I've been really sad that I'm shrinking as fast as I am. Though, I mean, I knew I would. I just didn't know it would happen so quickly, though, due to, the arthritis and joint replacement and everything. It's just kind of, do you remember the Shrinky Dinks? Remember those little plastic things you put in the oven type of thing? So, I don't know. Anyway, so here was this trip. It was so phenomenal. I was also way out of my realm. I was so glad that I was with a group of people that knew what they were doing. We stayed at a beautiful resort, and the kitchen did their best to accommodate my diet, though with language barriers and just not getting it across to them, regardless of how much our translators were saying that they could not get away from wanting to bathe everything in oil. And I had taken some of my own food, and we did, go to a little, there was a grocery store nearby. But anyway, sadly, I wound up, along with many of us on this trip, came back from Mexico with an intestinal parasite. And there could have been any number of we don't know. I mean, as much as, the resort had filtered water, we did bottled water when we were out and about. And so who knows? But needless to say, that stuck with me. And there were a number of things that I was doing with my doctors to try and figure out what the heck was going on. So fast forward here, I'm going to take you on a little journey. If any of you have seen any of my other, this isn't a gambling channel, but if you know who this guy is, his name's Brian. He has a channel called BC Slots. And even though I live in Utah where it's illegal to gamble, I love Las Vegas, if only for the spas and the shopping and the weather, the pools, all that type of thing. And that was certainly more, the pools and the whole, that type of thing was more appealing as a younger woman, though I still love the spas. And I love his channel, and I had only taken one other cruise, and that was on Disney. I treated myself to that, and I went alone. I joined a bunch of groups and, did the fish extender thing and the exchanges and hiding the ducks and stuff, and met wonderful meal companions, and have stayed in touch with a few people I met on that cruise. And that was just amazing. So when I decided to cruise again, knowing that Brian Christopher and his husband, they do cruise trips all the time. And I thought, no, I'm going to splurge. So this was last December, and I upgraded. So for any of you who cruise and know what it's like for traveling solo, it's really, really expensive. And I wanted to have a balcony cruise, and it wasn't real, fancy. It was the Mexican Riviera type thing, so leaving out of Long Beach, and it was so beautiful. I had so much fun on this cruise. It ended up being kind of bittersweet, only because once I got on board, I was just thinking about all of the other, because we were going to do meet and greets, and it was mainly going to be about the gambling and, me having a spa moment and watching sunsets all the way down and sunrises all the way back from my balcony. And I had this picture taken only because I got first place in the tournament with him, and not with, but it was sponsored by him, so it was part of our trip, and it was just it was so exciting and so much fun for me. So to have that moment knowing that, I'm doing all these things to invest in my health, taking good care of myself. This was on Carnival, and I would say everything was optimal other than everything that I was told about their dining plan and how they were able to accommodate my diet. They did not. The food was so awful. I was I was just shocked. And I also follow Cruise with Ben and David, and I love their channel, especially with their Disney cruises. They give me such good ideas and tips, and all of the entertainment and everything. Um, I normally will take a lot of my own food just so I've got like a foundation, so that I've got like some staples on hand. And I was just shocked at how, I mean, even people on the cruise that, didn't necessarily, they didn't were on a diet, but they just thought it was so bland, it was so boring, really repetitive. So that was just kind of shocking. So this is the fast forward. So I'm still at this point, and weight wise, I was up around like the 141, 142 range, and this morning I weighed in at 132 pounds. That's an okay weight for my height, and if you can see my wrist, this was a trick I was given a long time ago from like my doctor and physical therapists and things, of just wrapping your fingers around as far as like measuring your frame. So, this may be something that you're talking to your doctor about, maybe not, though just knowing that I have a fairly small frame. And since I have joint replacement, that my surgeon had told me to maintain a lean weight. And when I taught self-help courses for the Arthritis Foundation, long before I became sick, I knew that even if you have excess weight on a healthy joint, it's really harmful, and if you just think about like a hinge on a door, if there's too much weight, if you're like leaning stuff on it, after a while, then that hinge, things are going to start to bow, and things will collapse or get creaky, achy, those type of things. So with where I was here, I could feel, I was still active, still working out every day, though I knew that just having that excess 10 pounds there was horrible. This is when I started trying kombucha, and I had never drank that before. Not that I don't like fermented drinks, I don't like carbonation. And after about a week of having a kombucha in the morning as a way to extend my fast, I was finally able, that alongside, what my doctor and I were working on together, we finally cleared that intestinal parasite. So by January of this year, in 2025, I had gotten rid of that 10 pounds that I had been carrying ever since I got back from Mexico. And I went on a deep dive this year in 2025, knowing that in April I turned 60, and my son and I had been planning for a few years that we wanted to be in Tokyo for my birthday. Japan had always been on his bucket list. It's certainly been on mine, and we are huge nerds. I'm a Disney adult. I am one of those people that I adore Disneyland. My maternal grandmother lived in Culver City, California when I was a little girl, and I've always lived in Salt Lake, and the only time I would get to see her is when we took trips to Disneyland, which honestly wasn't very often when I was a child. My family was not financially well off, so trips like that didn't happen very often. So I fell in love with Disneyland when I was 6 years old, and I can remember clearly standing in front of the castle in my little patent leather shoes and little white gloves, and the way they dressed children back in the 70s, and looking up at that castle, and I fell in love. It was just magical to me, and I carried that as a young adult, and certainly then as a parent, and have fallen in love with Disneyland ever since. So anyway, fast forward to the trip of this year, and I'm going to show you. We went on. My son was not afraid of any type of travel. He travels all over the world, and we wanted to go on a bullet train. Look at this. One of the tours that we took. Oh my gosh, no, you don't want to see that. Um, we packed so much in to this. I didn't know how long or if ever I was gonna be over in Japan. I would go back again in a heartbeat, though. The airfare alone took me about 2.5 years to save up the money, and for anyone who is living on a fixed income, limited income, and juggling many things financially, that I didn't want to just max out my credit cards. I actually wanted to save up for the trip and pay for it. And I knew that once we got there, that Tokyo Disneyland and everything that we got to do in Japan, our money went so far. I was astonished. The but the bullet train thing was, you know, just really scary because I didn't know how well my body would respond, and all of the elaborate health goals that I put myself through at the first of the year to get my weight down. I decided I wanted to grow out my bangs just so it would make my hair easier to pull it back in a ponytail or a braid or whatever, knowing that I live in a dry, arid climate. So how my hair is here versus in a humid climate, uh, I was just gonna look like a big frizz bomb wearing baseball caps. Fine, that's okay. I wasn't there to be glamorous, though I certainly wanted to look presentable and nice. I'm in a beautiful place like Tokyo, honestly, one of the most beautiful, clean, structured. It was stunning, just absolutely beautiful, beautiful place. And as it was a dream come true, and I wanted to be fit, I wanted to be able to keep up. And the time change alone, I was trying to get myself ready, not knowing how well I was going to adjust to jet lag, since I hadn't traveled that extensively before. Even when I went to Teotihuacan, when I went to Mexico from Utah, the time difference wasn't that big. The only time I had ever traveled that far previously was a trip to Boston, and the jet lag, it didn't hit me as hard as it did in Japan. And that 14-hour difference I never bounced back from that. And that was really sad for me. It was sad for my son, and he was very gracious and did his own thing, which I wanted him to. We were able to stay at a Hilton right near the Disney property, and thankfully they had what's called an onsen. It's a traditional Japanese spa, and Salt Lake actually has a traditional Japanese spa that I had the privilege of working at prior to the pandemic. It's a stunning place. And so if anyone's familiar with the hot soaks and the cold plunges and the entire traditional ritual aspects of an onsen, that truly was my saving grace of what enabled me to function on that trip. Though when we went on our tour that included that bullet train, and I wasn't necessarily afraid of the train. I like racetracks, and I'm not a NASCAR person or anything. It looked thrilling. my only concern was that once I was on board, how well my hips would feel. That was my concern. And I didn't realize that when we got onto the train, that it was so crowded that there was nowhere for us to sit down. And my son is a really large man, and thankfully he just got right behind me and was bracing me. And we actually, there was I held on to the headrest of another, oh my hell, of another seat nearby. And it was that force of once we got going quickly that I was just frightened, and I wanted to look out the window, though. Then I thought, well, what if I get dizzy and I fall over? Just all these things went through my head. And what actually showed up later on, a couple of days after we took that, my left eye, just every once in a while, I would see these little flashes of white light. And it wasn't for a few months afterwards that and I didn't want to go to a doctor. I didn't feel like it was impairing my vision or anything, though I thought, holy cow, if it doesn't go better, I'm going to see my eye doctor as soon as I got back to the States. I learned that I experienced an ocular migraine. There was no pain. It was just really random. Like my son even, because I'd go, do you see that light? Did you just see that light? And it took about a week and a half for it to stop. And it was the stress and pressure related type thing. And my eyes are fine. I wear glasses for distance. That's why I take them off a lot of times and don't always have them on in my videos. So that was April, and getting my body back. It was almost a month, before I got my sleep-wake schedule back in order. So note to myself, when that I have the opportunity to travel extensively like that again, I will do a deep dive in preparation of how to better take care of myself in order to handle jet lag. And ideally, I would like to take a cruise and go through the time changes at a more gentle pace than the way we traveled. And my son doesn't have a hard time with jet lag, and we both, even I assumed that within a day I would be okay, and I never was. So that was kind of a drag. Back to the little story of my next dealie with all the, and I'm not a huge gambler. When the people that I work with and other friends that I've talked to, that when they've said that, I got a cruise with the casino, you don't need to gamble that much to get one of those. And had I known they were so easy to get, now that I know how all the points and everything works, I hope to get more of them in the future. I just don't always have enough time, and then you still have to pay for airfare and everything. It's not like they're totally free. I was able to cruise this June on Holland America with a cruise voucher, and I went from Boston to New Brunswick. And Holland America also has, they're more catered for mature adults, which I totally loved. It was a lot more laid back. The entertainment was wonderful. I worked with their culinary team, and they had all sorts of wonderful things just on the buffet. The dining room didn't have, they couldn't wrap their head around the oil-free, even though the culinary team said that they could. They struggled. It was it was so sad. They were making, a mountain out of a molehill when I was just like, seriously, just baked potatoes, some steamed rice, give me some vegetables, I'm good. It doesn't need to be fancy. The nice thing about Holland America, if you've cruised with them before, they have floating libraries. And as an author, I simply asked nicely, as I was told by another cruiser to do who has written books, that I simply asked, and here I am, that they actually put copies of my signed book in the Zwieterdam floating library. And that was really cool. The last thing I'm going to show here is this map. And oh, that's awful. Okay, there you go. So look back to my very first video, and on this cruise, I just did a great thing for myself, and I was spontaneous. I did some DIY excursions because I had spent so much in April for the Tokyo trip, and I knew that I would be back in Disneyland, California in July for the 70th anniversary. I wasn't going to miss that. That this cruise, I wanted to be as budget as possible, knowing that the flight from here to Boston was pricey. You know, still had all the incidentals and buying little souvenirs here and there, that type of thing, though I DIY'd every port, and the very last port, I wound up having this long, extended walk that, as much as I train and I work out every day, I hadn't pushed myself that way, especially on my own, for a long time. And hiking and fitness and strength training, all of those things, I'm pretty strong for a 60-year-old woman. I am very proud of where I am now, knowing that 2011 and 2012 are the 2 years when I received, I've received my left hip replacement, and then I received the right hip replacement in 2012, had to have a revision surgery, and the whole recovery period took a long time in order for me to be here in 2025 and doing all of the things that I'm doing and taking care of myself and looking forward to 2026. That's why I'm going on this deep dive just for 3 days, 3 itty bitty days, that I'm doing some extra cleaning house. And I would like to invite you on this journey with me and take advantage of all of the free resources and the tips and the tools that I share, and customize that. That's what I suggest in my book. It's just like anything, take what's useful, apply it, try it out. Maybe it's something you're doing already, and see how it fits in your world. That is what my channel and how my aging philosophy is about. That we are on a journey to improved health, and I invite you to become a more active participant and invest more time in yourself as a mature adult, especially if you're living alone, aging solo like I am. We have that gift of time on our hands. And even though I'm working multiple jobs, on a holiday weekend like this, when I do have extra time to play and to have a super long workout in the morning, that I'm setting up these next 3 days, this is a gift. This is my early Christmas gift to myself. And will I lose a little bit of weight? Probably. And even though I'm 132 pounds right now, I know that for me, a healthier weight would be about 125, maybe 127. I haven't been in the low 120s since I was a really young woman when I was running track. And as we get older, our metabolism slows down, and we need less fuel. We need quality fuel. And those are the nutrients that are going to protect us and to boost our immune function, that are going to help us to digest effectively, and the things that nourish us so we can sleep more soundly and be more vibrant and help to protect our memory. All of those things that you want as you're getting older and want to remain independent. Check out the description below for my website, the PDF, all of the freebies that I have on my website, and please check out some of the other videos for ways that you can add more vegetables to your diet, ways that you can work out even if you have a small space like I do and have a home gym, all sorts of things that you can do to take better care of yourself. And let me know in the comments, how are you aging well? What are some of the things that you're doing to take better care of yourself? And check back as December 1st, 2nd, and 3rd take place on my 3-day potato reset and see what happens. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.